When we talk about addiction, we often focus on the addict. Seldom do we talk about the people related to the person who suffers from the addiction, the people who suffer along with the addict, the people who have to cope with the consequences, who suffer the sleepless nights, who feel helpless in their efforts to help. So I'm one of those people, and I didn't know if there were support groups for people like me, if there were strategies that I needed to read about, or if I myself needed help. The thing is, when your family is going through this, and you're not the addict, you feel alone because you are left alone. All the focus is on the person who is suffering from the addiction, and that's understandable, and that's how it should be. Sadly, I am not alone when it comes to the staggering numbers of families affected by addiction in America. According to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, approximately 20 million American adults struggle with substance abuse in 2017. Today, nearly a third of prison admissions are for drug offenses. Additionally, a third of all inpatient hospital costs are linked to addiction and risky substance use. And the sobering reality for people my age is this. According to the Recovery Institute, an estimated 90% of individuals with substance abuse disorders start drinking or using drugs before the age of 18. When my sister was battling addiction, I would witness how her struggle affected the entire family. She would often leave the house for days at a time, and of course, we would be worried about her safety. But when we would confront her about the troubling behavior, she would lash out, even though we were only trying to reach out to her. What we were really doing was pushing her farther away. She was in denial. Despite what my parents told her, despite the pleas, despite the reasoning, she did not believe she was going down a path of failure. The thing is, addiction changes the way you see things. Addicts don't want to believe they are addicted. My sister eventually got to a point where she couldn't take criticism or where any words thrown her way felt like a criticism. So that even approaching her would be stressful because the situation would be so volatile. Of course, like any parents in my situation, my parents tried everything they could possibly do to help. And naturally, they devoted all their attention to their daughter and her struggle. My parents directed so much of their attention to my sister that there were times when I felt it was unfair to me. What about my feelings? What about what I was going through? I'd be at the dinner table or in the car, and the only thing my parents would ever talk about was my sister. Fighting, arguing, it seemed as though my family couldn't really focus on my well-being, with my sister being the only thing on their minds. And what this caused me to feel was resentment towards my sister. And this resentment changed every interaction with my sister. From my vantage point, I was right, she was wrong. It was easy to blame her for all the friction between us. Whenever our interactions escalated into a fight, it was automatically her fault. She was the one with the problem, not me. Little did I realize that I was contributing to the problem. I became part of her echo chamber where all she heard was negative. What I failed to see and failed to understand is that often the root of addiction is feelings of inadequacy. So whenever I lashed out and told her she was a failure, or whenever she sensed my growing resentment, or let my resentment of her direct my actions, it would just make her crawl deeper into her addiction. She had already felt insecure, lost, sad, even despair, and so her addiction provided the necessary escape. When someone is already down, you shouldn't continue to bring them down. You need to lift them up. You need to be part of the solution. I didn't realize that my words only made my sister's situation worse. I didn't realize that I needed to change my approach, that I needed to change my attitude. There's a famous saying by Viktor Frankl: when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Frankl, who is a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, explains that he was only able to survive because he changed the way he saw his own situation. My sister's survival depended on her family changing their own attitudes towards her situation. Of course, this realization didn't come easily, and it didn't arrive through some serious contemplation. The realization came out of necessity. It was when my sister hit her lowest point, when things got so bad that she was kicked out of the house. Clearly, whatever we had tried to do didn't work. We needed to take a different approach. Addiction doesn't have to be a helpless situation. And being a family member, witnessing someone else battle addiction doesn't have to mean you are powerless. When my family and I were pushed to that moment, when whatever decision we made would determine whether or not my sister could prevail over her struggles, we decided that all the rehab and an intervention alone couldn't possibly save her. We needed to change our attitude. I was allowing myself to be a voice in her head where she only heard negative, and my family witnessed the consequences of our actions. It is only when we shifted perspectives that my sister began to make strides in her recovery process. When you are in a seemingly helpless situation, Consider the possibility that a change in attitude just might change your outcome. Thank you. Okay.